everybody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 149th Street at the bench.
If you've started your graffiti in this way, you might be ruining every letter after it. Dramatic intros aside, this piece from Mayor right here gives us a great opportunity to learn how an extension like this can have a massive effect on our letters. So this is a structure-dependent extension, and what I mean by that is it's not just an extension that has no structural value, say for example this piece here or this piece up until this point. These little things right here, they don't define any letter structure. However, what begins as a serif on the M shoots up and to the right to make the horizontal piece for the A right there, and then it continues on in this direction to then make the bottom of the bowl for the R. The reason structure-dependent extensions like this are so dangerous for new graffiti artists is because suddenly all of your letter structures have to work around that simple detail, and it redefines everything about your graffiti. It changes every single fundamental. For example, your mean line can also be only so high because, well, to have this shoot higher up would be a bit unreasonable, and having it shoot too low, once again, might interfere with certain structures. For example, the A itself, it would never reach high enough to make the crossbar if this extension shot more horizontally. And a structure-dependent detail like this also determines flow, because now your letters have to position themselves in such a way to receive that structure-dependent detail. So while this surely can be done, and a lot of great graffiti artists do it with plenty of success, new graffiti artists struggle to pull this off in their work. Next up, a lot of your basic boxes just simply do not align. For example, your M doesn't really align, and your R has plenty of inconsistencies with how its basic boxes align. Lastly, a lot of these extensions don't really make much sense. There isn't much of a harmony between them, and you have these arrows that are only ever half exposed in most cases, or cut off. And I think, as a matter of fact, every single arrow is cut off. So we're gonna sketch this again. This time we're going to re-establish a lot of those basic boxes, make sure that they align properly, and we're gonna be getting rid of pretty much all of the arrows. We'll also be keeping this structure-dependent detail to show that, sure, it is possible, but we will be getting rid of other unnecessary extensions like this, and we'll try to rework this one in a much different way. As you can see, we kept the M predominantly the same, we kept the same lean to it, but we cleaned up the basic boxes, and instead we connected this little serif on the top left, more so to where that vertex would actually be for the basic boxes. We did shrink the M slightly, and to help counterbalance that, we also went ahead and raised the E up in order to help match the M's positioning. Now, what I imagined is, because they do have 3D going to the bottom right, instead what you would want to do is you'd want to do 3D to the bottom left. And the reason for that would be to fill in and help the M gain a bit of that weight back. There's many other ways you could do this. You could also include some exterior details, which would be a great thing to do for something in this instance. For example, something like that, and then include a few more throughout the piece as well if you really wanted to. This would once again help the M build a bit more of that weight back. From there, we have the structure-dependent detail going through over to the A. We did restructure the A a little bit because the A structure wasn't really lining up properly. Now, we took the extension you had on the bottom right of your A that shot over to the left, and instead we started it on the left and shot it over to the right. We also used this extension to help suggest the A's structure, the right side of the leg, by ending the extension right here and then chopping it off. This gives us an extra line for line uniformity and similarity with this part of the R and the bottom of the A, as well as the horizontal structure-dependent extension. We did decide to end the structure-dependent extension right there on the A, but if you wanted, you could have continued it by simply erasing this line and that line to help suggest its existence and to help suggest that it might shoot all the way through. Now, instead of having the extension that came down and then shot into the E that was lower in this area initially, we instead got rid of that entire extension and used the fact that we're getting rid of the arrow on the leg of the R as an opportunity to redefine the leg of the R, have the leg come down, show its structure there, and then turn into an extension that then shoots into the E, this time going into the stem of the E as opposed to the bottom portion of the E. This allowed us to raise the E up slightly to lift it off of the baseline, but not by much. We don't want to raise the E too much off the baseline because the E is pretty large, and if we raise that large of a letter high off the baseline, it's going to have a lot more weight. We don't want to give it that much weight because the M already lacks weight as it is. To help balance this, we'd have to depend not only on the addition of 3D going to the left or bottom left, but also the use of exterior details like the chips we showed previously to help bulk up that left side. Without that, the M weighs a lot less than the E, so you really need those extra elements. Now, to be clear, there is a lot we could have done to go ahead and like subdue that a bit, right? We could have shot the M further down, for example, and then had our extension shoot up and then over, and that would have worked out perfectly fine. That would have been a very easy way to have the structure dependent detail work out for the best. If this video has been helping you out and you feel like you've learned something, check out our new book in the description down below. It'll teach you a lot more. I'm talking stuff that you won't be able to find anywhere online. It's the only book on the market that teaches you all of graffiti's fundamentals and walks you through how to develop your style if you're more experienced. We have digital copies on our online store, theartistblock.inc, with physical copies over on Amazon. There's one thing that new graffiti artists kind of struggle to keep consistent, and that is their basic box's width. And you'd be shocked with how much that little tiny change can make a massive difference in your graffiti. Now obviously this is going to be most relevant to your pieces, but this is also applicable to your throwies, and we're seeing an example of it here with Throwie, where they get us accustomed to having generally this width of a letter, with the thin part getting right about there. This is also consistent in the U, where once again our thinnest area is relatively the same, but where things become inconsistent is in the R. Now here's the thing, here's where understanding specific letters makes a massive difference, because the letter R tends to have a lot of natural weight to it, especially the 2-box leg variant, which we're seeing right here. This is problematic because, well, he doesn't have a lot of room on this page, and as a result, making this leg thicker can be a little bit difficult, especially if he's thinking about maybe pushing the leg further out or potentially pushing the leg outward that way, which would make it a 1-box leg. So to help reduce the weight and try to make the letter weight consistent with all the other letters, you thin down this box. The issue with that is now your basic boxes don't have a uniform weight, which ends up making this have a lot of contrast, which then gives it more visual weight. So what we want to do is we definitely want to make this basic box more consistent with the thin areas of your other letters, and it doesn't have to be all that much thicker either. From there we have a different issue to tackle, and that is the negative space management and the letter name positioning. These letters have a lot of space between them, and this ends up drastically affecting the flow of a name. Especially when a space begins to compound and you see that space accumulate throughout the entire name, then each letter loses more and more flow, not only with the letter before it, but the one after it. Look, I'll be honest with you guys, I have no idea how to say this name. I'm just gonna call him Rum, because I don't know how an X would be pronounced at the beginning of this. So, Rum it is. And this is a really simple critique, but you're gonna want to keep it simple, practice the basics. You're gonna want to stick with learning those core fundamentals, right? How do my basic boxes align? And how can I get my shapes to be cleaner? Really, clean shapes are at the crux of good graffiti, and it's what a lot of new graffiti artists are missing. So definitely work on that and pay attention to how your basic boxes align. For example, this part of your R and this part of your R should be connecting, and they're not. And this line of your R should be aligning with this, and it's not. This is all one rectangle, so it should be one consistent line between those 3 different sections. Similar thing with the X, where certain things should be aligning and they just simply don't. So if you work on that, that'll put you on the right track. Next up, we got our good friend Josh Graff, who, alright, I gotta let you guys know, not only is the dude writing his own Throwie book, which I'm really excited to see, but he's also going to be helping us illustrate our Throwie book, which legit, I spent the last month writing just the negative space management chapter. That chapter is massive. Anyway, Josh has incredible work. He's got amazing throwies. A lot of you guys probably already know him. I got a link to him in the description down below. And he wants us to check out this Throwie right here, which I love. I think it's great. I think it's amazing. The one thing I would change though is refining the structure a bit more on the T. So we know what this says. He's got the handstyle at the bottom there. But then he has this interior detail right here that, number one, doesn't happen anywhere else, which in this instance is fine because these details aren't too intrusive. But where this becomes a little bit of an issue is the fact that this right here is a Z structure and we're looking for a T. So simply including, which I mean in one of these other throwies up here that's off screen, he actually does this, but suggesting the structure by including a little bit of line right there would define the T a lot more. It's just inconvenient placing right here, especially considering the T already lacks some structure. He also could just have lowered this little detail, so like that, this horizontal would have been placed right around here, and that also would have done the job. Lastly, I probably personally would have gotten rid of this little serif here. It doesn't really hurt the image all too much, but he doesn't really have a serif like this anywhere else, so for the sake of consistency, I would have done away with it because this gives us more than enough letter uniformity and similarity with other letters in the image. But even with that, this is a solid 10 out of 10 Throwie. I love it. This is good stuff. Be sure to check him out in the description down below. So dudes, there you go. That wraps up the critiques. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Also in the comments, if you're having trouble with your tag name, let me know what you write down in the comments and tell me what you're struggling with, and I'll try to get back to anybody who's having issues with their tag name. game. And don't forget, if you really want to get a jump start in graffiti or you want to help evolve your style, check out our book in the description down below. It's the only one on the market that teaches you all of graffiti's fundamentals and sets you up to find your style once you've learned those basics. This book is great for anybody who's just getting into the art form and for experienced graffiti artists alike, because we not only give you all the fundamentals and explain it in immense depth to establish a solid foundation for you to build a style on, but we also talk about how to develop and refine your style if you've been a little bit stagnant and you have a bit more experience. You can find digital copies on our online store, theartistblock.inc, with physical copies over on Amazon. We also have more graffiti tutorials right up here, with more graffiti content right down here. I'll catch you guys back here next week. Thanks for watching.